Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show with Aditya. A half an hour show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in association with Dusra.net, the number one website. This is episode 118, the final Friday of September 2019, and welcome to episode 118. On the 27th of September 2019, millennials, that is individuals aged between 23 to 38, always feel lonely. So says a study. But what do we exactly mean by the word lonely? It's a generation that grew up with access to smartphones, internet, and other technologies available. But there is a flip side to this as well. While we express pride on these technologies available and are patient to use it with such alacrity, there are times when we curse this very technology that forces us to be lonely. It means that the first thing that millennials do in the morning is check your emails and other digital media updates. Since the idea of a physical company is being slowly replaced by virtual companies, the idea of companionship is changing drastically or has changed drastically over the past decade. Irrespective of which era we are born in, we are obviously influenced by TV shows where we see individuals coming in unannounced at their friend's house, and we presume that we can replicate this in our own lives, and we get so influenced by such TV shows and technologies that we start confusing ourselves. Loneliness, in a way, is relative, and it's something that has been experienced by all generation. In fact, the term loneliness is exaggerated. The pre-internet generation or the post-internet generation, their definition of loneliness always remained the same. Being brought up with computer and other electronic devices in your hand doesn't give you the empowerment over previous generations, because the idea of technology is limited to a few devices. It's often baffling to me that where do we come up with such terms like loneliness or internet enabled generation, that if you take the phone away from millennials, they will become useless. Can the idea of being surrounded by technology 24/7 bring about a feeling of sadness? It's ironical that on one hand we give these technologies an empowering state, on the other hand we see it as this tool which renders us so dependent on them that we cannot exist without these technologies. While being empowered with technologies is a positive thing, but there is no obligation for us to be on such platforms all the time. It's our choice. We have the choice to decide when we can take a break. What is the definition of a break as far as technologies is concerned? And in a world where we are obligated to put our viewpoints up there for every small issue, also confuses us. To say things that without internet one's life would have been a waste, or the fact that we would have learned nothing at all, is an insult to those who worked hard to create books and knowledge centers. But the fact that for us knowledge is only on the internet shows how narrow minded our focus is on things. The world of fiction and facts is so intertwined that it's impossible to separate the two, and our understanding of what is fact and what is fiction and separating the two is now nearly impossible. It's a universal truth that each generation will be more knowledgeable and get mature than the previous generation. But to say that the previous generation, or as we call the generation X or the baby bloomers and the others, that they do not have any kind of understanding of how things are done, be it financial literacy or other things, is going in a wrong direction. The whole idea of dividing generations or a period of 15 to 20 years itself is a ridiculous attempt. Just as it was in school when we studied our history in terms of ancient, medieval, and modern. Same way, saying that you have a generation X, a generation Y, a generation Z, and then millennials. This kind of divide doesn't help anyone. The idea of generation X, generation Y, millennials is only existential. Apart from that, such infantile terms serve no purpose. If we are presuming that millennials are mature, or the current generation is mature, or the current generation of every generation was supposed to be mature, then we need to respect the previous generation and not call them infantile or juvenile, and drone about the fact that only one generation is mature while the others are still in their infantile stages. Saying that the internet powers you is a paradox. Being stressed, being lonely, being depressed is only a state of mind. Humans may have evolved and technology may have become better, but humans have remained the same. That dependence on something will always continue, be it on digital devices, at least for the past 20 years, or be it on other humans. We as humans will always be dependent on others. It could be an artificial intelligence, or it could be a natural human intelligence. And the craving for more and more information will never wither away. We could go to the library to get information, or we could seek up the information on this absurd digital platform called the internet. The common theme is we want more and more information about everything. The source after a while becomes immaterial. We have been told that when an individual bullies us or we don't like the way we are treated, we should not react. If this is a truism in real life, why can't we adapt the same strategy online? So if an individual says something to you on these platforms, that is what they call the trolls, the best part would be just to ignore them. And if this strategy works in your non-digital situations, then this will definitely work in your digital situations. There is no need to make a mountain out of a molehill if somebody says something to you either in person or through a virtual or a digital medium. But such situations are relative, and it is difficult to come to one conclusion as to how to react or not to react. There is a saying that the more things change, the more they remain the same. And this is even true in terms of the idea of a job. Despite the introduction of technologies and other digital platforms, a few things remain the same. And the question looms how to make our students job ready. And this question has been there for the past 100 years, ever since the country was formed. We may have added jargons like employability, skills, upgrading your skills, but the commonality is that you have to get a job. Despite the booming of technology or skills, or the idea of skills changing with the influence of the tech revolution, our understanding of an individual's job orientation, or that individual understanding what their job is, we are becoming more and more rigid when it comes to such complex discussions. It means that entrance tests are not going anywhere. They are still the way you will be judged and evaluated if you are good in a certain job. It may have become from a conventional paper based test to an integrated computer based test, but the idea is that it's still an entrance exam, be it for schools, colleges, or jobs. The understanding is that grades and scores decide the caliber of students. This theory was present 50 years ago also. It's present now. So my question is, what has changed? We may be adding more and more jargons to the idea of what is teaching and what is expected of a student when they graduate from colleges, but the end result is that they have to clear those dozens of entrance exams. The fact that we evaluate a college or an institution by its placement percentage, that is, how many students have been placed after they graduated, despite all our farcical attempts to add jargons like creative thinking, cognitive development, vocational studies, the end result is you have to be prepared for a job. This basically means we are stuck from where we began. This kind of theory was present 50 years ago, maybe a different thought process, but even then, the idea of graduating from a college was to get a job. It could have been your typical government job or some other job, and still 50 years from then, it's still about getting a job. We may add jargons, we may change the process, but the target is to get a job. Colleges are now making on job training compulsory. It means that if you enroll in a professional course, and if it's a course which runs on, let's say, weekends, then on the rest of the 5 days, you need to go through practical training. Yes, it's a good idea, but it cannot be enforced. It has to be done in such a manner that students themselves look for this practical training opportunities. Don't make it so rigid that if you do not go for training, your marks will be deducted. It's not as if, let's say, 30 years from now, people were not getting practical experience, but it was not taken seriously. And the fact that now the institutions which matter are involved in this, we suddenly wake up and think now they are important. The word experience has become such a cliche that now it's as if we want to cover our ears when we hear the word experience and education based technology. When everything is directly or indirectly related to the final conclusion, that is getting a job, the entire effort of being in a college and understanding what we study goes down the drain. Why do we feign and express grief that millions of students are graduating but very few are employed? Is it a necessity that you have to take a job after you finish college? Can you not wait a few months and then think about the same? Or if people are not employed, then it means that the economy is in trouble. Such a thought process is redundant. If a student after graduating sits down and starts writing a novel or a short story, how is that not a job? How is that not a part of what we call HOTS, higher order thinking skills? Is it so important that we have to be employed by others to show our skills? Nobody is less skilled or more skilled. Their particular profession does not give any indication. So, universities in the UK have introduced the 2 year post study work visa, and everybody is expressing happiness about the same. Why cannot we introduce the same policy here that after graduating or post graduating, an individual can take up a job in any industry of their choice in which they feel that they have the knowledge and the skill, and there should be no issues in that industry accepting them? Or we can go through a different situation. What we need to do first is remove this discrepancy between internships and job. A new policy should be introduced that if an individual does internship in a company, then after 2 months they should be absorbed as regular individuals, and during their internship they should be paid the same salary as a normal job. We have to remove this barrier of stipend and a job. Or despite your best efforts, if you are not able to secure a job anywhere, then the universities itself in which you are studying should be able to absorb you in any department at any level, even be it at a teaching assistant level, and give you the salary equivalent of what should be deserved. We have to remove complications of teacher recruitments or any other recruitment. The more we simplify the idea of an interview or recruitment, the better it is. And those who start their own companies should be encouraged at every stage, and it should be recognized as a full-time job. So if you are studying, let's say, a course on Saturday and Sunday, and if that course requires you to have on-job training, and if you by chance have your own company with regards to that particular profession or subject, then that what you do should be recognized. One does not need a certificate of approval for working with someone else as an indication that you learned the practicalities of that subject. Unless this happens, the idea of on-job training and other jargons will go down the drain, irrelevant of the fact that how the ideation of a typical job has changed. We may consider a few jobs as ordinary, middle class, repetitive, and may strive or may have moved on to higher end jobs which require human skills such as networking, creativity, problem solving. In a nutshell, despite the presence of technology, the understanding of a job, the understanding of what is being employed and what is skill has not changed. The end result is we still need to get a job to prove that a certain country is booming economically, and our idea of being employed or having a job is still stuck in a cocoon of working for others. And even despite the booming of startups, it's still a job where we work for others or where we depend on others. So this basically means that nothing has changed despite our farcical attempts to say that one has progressed. Things will only change when one day we come to the conclusion that after studying a certain subject, the end aim is not to work for someone else but to keep upgrading yourself and not get affected by such jargons such as employability and jobs and all the fictitious statistics that come along with it. One has to stop evaluating a college based on their placements. Taking a job is a personal choice, and despite the field being globally recognized or not, whatever we decide to do is our choice. We have to remove this ghost of employability and jobs from our minds. This ends part 1 of this episode. Stay tuned for part 2. After an exciting 20-over tournament, we now move on to the longer and the more self-professed boring version. Rohit Sharma will now join Jason Roy and Aaron Finch as individuals who used to open in the 1 day and 20 overs and will now get a chance to open in the test matches. And there has been such a debate about him that whether will he be able to rein himself in this particular situation. What will he do? Will his test career come to an end if he fails, or will his test career be prolonged if he is patient? For more on this, you can go to my website www.thedusra.net and go to the article Rohit, Roy and Finch. Now let's talk that why do we have dwindling attendance, especially in the test matches in India, and why do we have a full house in test matches outside India? Is it how the team performs that makes a difference? Well, yes, but that is only 10% of why the crowd are poor in attendance. 90% is how the administration itself has an attitude towards this particular format. While they invest heavily in the 20-over matches, that is the Asian side of the world, the non-Asian sides invest heavily in both. The quality of the stadium, the infrastructure, the entry, and how comfortable the spectators and the audience feel inside the stadium makes a difference. Now the fact is that the 20-over matches are day and night, means they are from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. and the 1 day matches are also from 2 p.m. till 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. So individuals can come as and when they get free. Now in test matches they start at around 10 a.m. in India, and if the administrators want to encourage people and want to have full attendance, then they themselves need to change the attitude towards that particular format. First, they need to introduce packages, which means that a select group of spectators who pay that amount will be treated like VIPs, which means that they can drive their car to a certain point. From that point, a limousine or a Mercedes will take them inside the stadium. It will take them to the stand in which they have booked their ticket. Then the refreshments, the beverages will be part of the ticket. And as and when the match finishes, the last day of the match, this group who have paid a good amount will be allowed to have a photograph and introduction with the players. For those who are coming from other cities, or what the stadiums can do in the future is that have a deal with the bus and metro services, that it being a part of the package, people will be picked up from certain designated points by the bus, and instead of being in a long queue, they will be taken directly inside. Yes, there is a need for security check. That will also happen, but they will not have to wait in the scorching heat outside the stadium. And this should be made possible for at least 50% of the individual, while the rest, after going through the security check, will be taken to their respective stands by an usher. In a nutshell, if you want people to come in large numbers, give them that environment. If the refreshments and the beverages are a part of the ticket, then they will come in happily. If they don't have to stand in line for hours, and if this queue system is streamlined, the security guards are professional and courteous, people will come. This will spread like a wildfire, because the price of the ticket should be equivalent to the services provided. If you cannot provide a service, then you should not have heftily priced tickets. If the individuals have to walk miles from their car parks, bus stations, metro station towards the stadium, then nobody will come. If this part is streamlined and better organized, then individuals will definitely come. So the capacity of the car parking should be equivalent to the capacity of the stadium, or vice versa. It's a flawed logic that people don't have interest in one format and they have interest in the other. This logic, as I said, is only 10%. The 90% is all on how the administrators treat the spectators. And unless this change comes from the administrators' side, our conclusion that individuals are not interested in a particular format will always rule the roost. The biggest flaw by the administrator is that how they only open one or two gates during a match, and this creates traffic jams and lot of confusion for the particular spectators. In fact, all the gates should be opened. The individuals who manage the stadium and the organizers who organize the match in that stadium, there should also be a good understanding between them that during a match we can open all the gates and can allow cars inside so that individuals don't have to walk. And to counter the traffic jams that can happen, we can have car parkings or designated spots where people can park their cars, and after alighting, the cars or the taxis in which they arrive can quickly move out, and the individuals who are going to watch the match can go through the security process in a more streamlined manner. Unless they also go through such a change of mindset where they respect the spectators, we will always see dwindling crowds and will mourn the fact that this particular sport is losing interest. Well, as I said, and I will keep repeating it, this is only 10% of the truth. This ends part 2 of this episode. Thank you so much for listening to tonight's episode. Have a great weekend and good night. I will be back next week with more fun conversations.